All right, I'm ready when you are.
All right, yo, it's your boy Rush. I'm in the building with Richard Cooper, aka Entrepreneurs and Cars, aka the YouTube Tycoon, is in the building. Yo, let the people know who you are and give them the breakdown on your MO. Know what I mean?
Okay, so Rich Cooper, Entrepreneurs and Cars is the YouTube channel. My podcast channel is the Unplugged Alpha. My book is titled The Unplugged Alpha. You can go check out those resources or just head over to, I don't know, cameras backwards, my website to learn more about me.
Word up, man. I'm so happy you're in the building today, man. Thank you for coming through. Um, my first question to you is, despite of my religious belief, I'm not a advocate for marriage like that.
Mhm.
And I want your perspective on your thoughts on the whole marriage type thing. And do you think it's a bad deal to engage in a contract dealing with marriage through the state?
Yeah, there's a chapter in my book on why smart men don't marry. There's a number of reasons for it. It's hostile towards men and especially fathers. It's very low risk, high reward for women because they tend to marry across and up on the socioeconomic scale. They marry wealthier men, generally speaking, if that makes sense. And when you're in a marriage, your hands are tied pretty badly. You don't have a lot of options or wiggle room if you don't clearly understand what you're walking into. There's a lot of moving parts to that story. I mean, we could talk about that for hours, but that's the main reason why.
Right. And yeah, man, cause I be hearing like a lot of horror stories, guys go through those situations or whatever. But I noticed that you're still an optimistic type person when it comes to the relationship between the male and female from that kind of dynamic. I mean, and I think that's good to have that balance, not to remain pessimistic through going through a bad situation like that. And I think that's amazing that you're able to still balance that out through your some of your messages. But you also let guys know not to be, straight up suckers, know what I mean? And my next question is for you would be yo, when it comes to like having failures in life, right? Um what's the thing that you think people are cheering in on the sidelines on having like decent work ethics when it comes to getting into like business and like investments and that nature, like what's your thoughts on that?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Maybe you can rephrase it for me.
I'll revise the statement. Like, pretty much what advice would you give to someone that's trying to get into like investments and business and how to become successful through that lane?
Well, it really depends on what your talents are and what your objectives are. You can't invest and have your money working for you if you don't have money to invest. A lot of people think, "Oh, I'll turn $1,000 or $5,000 into $1,000,000." It's impossible. The chances of you doing that are so remote. You might as well just throw money at playing the lottery. So, if you want to have a good investment strategy, you have to have a good pool of money, well diversified in different investments for the payoff to be realized at the end of the day. So, guys that are all about, yeah, I'm going to invest or I'm going to buy this crypto or, something like that, 99.999% of them go nowhere and they lose their original investment because they usually put it in a high risk um, stock or a high risk cryptocurrency. And it goes to nothing. So your best investment's in yourself. You have to unplug from life's comforting lies, like I talk about in my book, The Unplugged Alpha. Make something out of yourself. Becoming an entrepreneur is probably one of the best paths, although there's other ways to make significant amounts of money. And once you have some significant amounts of money, as you paid yourself first, you've got, principal residence, real estate, stuff like that. Then you can start investing into the markets and getting your decent return on investment when you've done it right. But it's going to take some time for you to figure that out. There's no one quick tip that I can give you right now. I think there's a path that you have to follow, and it's A B C D E sort of thing.
Okay, great advice. Now I noticed that your book kind of expounds on the definition of an unplugged alpha, and you're pretty much saying that an unplugged alpha is striving for excellence, not making a female as a priority within their life span, and always I guess remain within their purpose. Like just give me your personal perspective on that. Like I can only paraphrase the best I could with my ability, and just give us a little more breakdown on your definition of the unplugged alpha.
So there's four quadrants. There's alphas and there's betas, and there's plugged in and there's unplugged. So you can have a plugged in beta, an unplugged beta, a plugged in alpha, and an unplugged alpha, right? There's natural alphas out there that are plugged in. They're successful people. They're usually big and strong. They're influential. There's probably loads of athletes that you can think of right now that marry the wrong woman and they give up half their shit to somebody that divorces them 10, 11 years down the road, sort of thing. So there's different quadrants to it, but the unplugged alpha is basically the guy that sees the code in the matrix, that understands what the world's really about, the lies that have been shilled to them through government, through culture, through marketing, through education, through religion, through all these different aspects, and sees through the bullshit basically, and puts themselves first. Makes themselves the most important part, the most important component of everyday decisions and life choices, and how they're going to direct their lives and where they're going to go. And there's components of that when you deal with circle of influences like friends and women and the like, that you set boundaries around, right? Like an unplugged alpha is not going to invite a crazy woman into their life. There's a chapter on my book on 20 red flags. An unplugged alpha is not going to invite a woman that's got 15 of those red flags in their lives, marry them and put babies in them, because that is just about the dumbest thing that you can do. So the book covers a lot of those elements, right? It's something that you really have to dive into the rabbit hole on to fully understand.
Right, and man, I like the way you broke that down because it's digestible for the, I don't want to say beta male, but a male that's not knowledgeable about those words of wisdom that you just dropped right now. And my other question for you now is, why do you think some certain males that's a selective male would invite crazy women into their lives? Like why do you think they make foolish decisions like that?
It's a couple of things. The scarcity. They don't have an abundance mindset. They just, the first girl that touches her pee they want to get married to, or, make them their girlfriend, sort of thing. These guys are mostly geeks. And then there's the other component, which is probably the most weighted part, I would say. It's just all the bullshit we've been sold our lives. The story about one man, one woman. You take your vows till death do us part, and good in sickness and health, and richer and poorer, and blah blah blah. There's all kinds of narratives that you hear. Like, you've heard people say things like "happy wife, happy life." Well, I don't know a single guy that said "happy wife, happy life" that's in an actual happy marriage where they're getting enthusiastic sex from their wife on a regular basis. They're usually getting browbeat by their wives and treated like crap. So there's those two elements, and when they kind of like mash up, that's what creates a lot of problems. And I'd say probably the vast majority of society, like 85 to 95% of guys out there, would be in that category. There's very few guys that are unplugged from the matrix.
Right, and from what you stated within your book, I guess the plugged in alpha, kind of like holds on to that ideology of happy wife, happy life. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I just thought how you break down like everything within that premise of your book. I think that's genius. Like, you know what I mean? Now, give us the importance to recognize the act of a female that moves in a promiscuous manner. And what would you advise the youth to look out for when they're dealing with a promiscuous woman. Because a lot of times dudes that might have that scarcity mindset might link up with a female that that belongs to the streets. So it'd be dope for you to give us a breakdown on that.
Yeah, so female promiscuity is a recent phenomenon, openly anyway. I think women have been somewhat promiscuous in the past anyway, because in many cases they're forced to. Like if they pair bonded with a guy and he goes off hunting the saber-toothed tiger and he died, she'd have to pair bond to another guy. So women are adapt to mate switch from guy to guy. A lot of people in the Mano Swamp call it like monkey branching, for example, because women can move very quickly from dudes. But
Right.
a woman that has been with a bunch of guys is a extremely bad choice for a long term mate choice, especially if you're looking for something like a mother for your kids. For example, there's been lots of studies done on this. They're all factual. People get pissed off at it all the time. It doesn't matter. Getting mad at the facts doesn't change the fact that they're facts. If you have a problem with the facts, the problem is not with the facts; it's with you, basically. But they all reveal the exact same end game, which is a woman that's been with more guys has a harder time sticking to a guy in a long-term relationship. So for example, and by the way, another part of that equation is the younger they are when they lose their virginity, again, the less likely they are to form a healthy pair bond to a guy. So if you take two women, you take a woman that's 14 when she loses her virginity and has been with 100 guys by the time she's 30 and gets right with God and wants to settle down and have family and stuff like that. And you take another woman that was maybe 23 and was with one guy in a long-term relationship for 7 years, and you meet her again at 30. You're dating these two women, simultaneously. A lot of guys will just overlook her promiscuous past, like the woman that's been with 100 guys. They'll just say, she's gotten right with God. She's a good person. She says she wants a family. She's serious. But women are interested in men's future. Men need to be interested in a woman's past. The woman with the big notch count sucks, statistically speaking, at staying in a healthy, monogamous, pair bonded relationship with a man. They leave marriages, women leave marriages 8 times out of 10. So whenever there's a divorce filed through the courts, it's usually women filing it, not men. And the vast majority of women that are doing it are women with larger notch counts, right? Just a fact of life. It's an unfortunate, reality, but promiscuity doesn't affect men the same way that it affects women. So, she's been with a bunch of guys. So what's the difference if you're guy number 101 and things aren't going her way in the marriage? Maybe you're not providing, maybe you're not paying for stuff, maybe you're not agreeing to everything that she wants. What's going to stop her from bouncing to guy number 102 if she's already done it 100 times, right? And if you've got kids with her, family law is going to cover her ass and protect her to make sure that she's got full access to the kids or strong access to the kids, and money flows from the father to the mother. There's really no benefit whatsoever to pair bonding with women over a long-term basis. They might make good F buddies, friends with benefits, like fun girls, but you certainly don't want to give them the key to your house or, put a ring on their finger or anything like that.
Right. And sometimes guys they have a hard time to discern whether she's um marriage material, or they might just fall for the okey doke and wife up a smut that belongs to the street. Now, my next question for you is: do you think like the laws get these females conditioned to um, get a scapegoat with these marriages and take a dude to the cleaners? Like, do you think the law kind of like perpetuate that somewhat negative behavior, kind of like
Yeah.
a negative reinforcement? I mean, a positive reinforcement.
Yeah, that's one of the problems that I talked about in family law in my book as well. You're going to have to read the book to get the full details, but to sort of summarize an area of the book, there was a woman that was a married woman, and she had a couple kids. And as women do when they're sitting around at work on their lunch break, they talk. And she was talking to a friend of hers that was a single mom, does the exact same job. So let's say they're customer service reps, for example, they make the exact same money. And they were
Mhm.
comparing what their take home income was monthly. The married woman with the kids, and then the single mom with the kids that was also divorced. And even though they did the exact same job, the government, the way that it structures family law, makes sure that the single mom gets paid more money monthly, take home income. She gets a higher take home income than the married woman. And the point that the married woman made, it in these comments, and I've got it word for word, so you can actually read the exact quotes in the books. But the point that she made was that there's no incentive for me to stay married to my husband. There's incentives in law and employment law so that women who leave their husbands actually can have a higher take home income, and they don't have to put up with his shit either, right? Because the money has to flow to them, but they don't necessarily have to put up with his shit, as they like to say, sort of thing. So that kind of exemplifies how society is structured today. And most people don't understand that. Like when I say unplug, from the lies, that's one of the thousands of lies that I'm talking about that a lot of people refuse to accept because they think they've been told their entire life, just do the right thing, be a man, wife her up, have a family, have babies with her and stuff like that. But one of the things that you start to realize when you unplug from the matrix is that they tell men and women very different things. They tell men, you do what's right, but they tell women, you do what's right for you, girl. Right. So there's a big difference there.
Man, that's dope explanation right there. Now with the blue pill, you know, uh, with the blue pill thing, right? Like, do you think like what's the solution to help guys that's indoctrinated with this blue pill mindset? Like, do you think there's a solution, or is this one of those things where you gotta learn through life experience? Because sometimes when you give them the cheat code, they might turn around and get mad at you for
Yeah.
giving them that good advice. I mean,
Yeah, and they usually do. Like most plugged in betas will get pissed off at you. They'll call you names. They'll say that you're a misogynist. They'll ask you questions like who hurt you and stuff like that. Women especially, will use that line. But look, like my advice to guys is don't try to unplug people that don't want it, right? Like the teacher will appear when the student is ready, as the old saying goes. So what usually happens is some chaos happens in some guy's life. They get heartbroken. Their girlfriend cheats on them, go and fuck some guys, sort of thing. And then they start looking for answers on the internet. Maybe they find my YouTube video. Maybe they find, a link to something posted in some discussion forum or, something like that. And then that's when they start to read and dive deep into the rabbit hole. And then they start to realize, yeah, okay, now this kind of adds up and makes sense. Now I understand why she did what she did and why women make these choices and, so on and so forth, because there's so many different tunnels and paths that you go down when you start to discover this new information that helps you level up in life. And what a lot of guys like to do is they go and find that information because of the chaos they had in life, and they go and sit down with their buddies and they're like, dude, you got to hear about this hypergamy thing, or you got to understand that women don't care about your struggles. They hang out at the finish line and they fuck the winners, and they start using these sound bites, right? And
right,
most of these guys are like, they're not ready for it. It's like they aren't even close to being ready for it because they haven't experienced the chaos that the guy that was sitting there one night thinking about putting a noose around his neck and ending his life. They never get to that part of like absolute trauma. And unfortunately, it seems like that's what guys have to get close to, is they have to feel that, the sleepless nights. They've got that gut wrenching pain where they can't eat, or like whatever it happens to be because of that trauma in their life. And it usually comes because of relationships with women. But when you start to take the blinders off, you ever see those horses, walking around the park with the blinders on and they only see straight? Well, that's how most guys start. They have the blinders on and like, okay, now I think I understand the true nature of women. I've unplugged, I've taken the red pill, whatever it is you want to call it. And then they start to expand that. They're like, oh shit, they lied to me about a whole bunch of stuff. They lied to me about medical procedures. They lied to me about the pandemic. They lied to me about education. They lied to me about degrees. It's like you start to see that there's a lot of lies that are perpetuated in society to try to control you, to keep you under the thumb, right?
okay. Oh, so you kind of like, okay, I see
I
what you get.
go well beyond just chicks. Like most of the guys out there
Right,
focus on getting the girls, right? And it's like, dude,
yeah,
like when you take the blinders off and you start to see the rest of the world around that, it's not just women and relationships that you've been lied about. You've been lied about how to make money. You've been lied about how to create wealth. You've been lied about medical procedures and health, conditions and stuff like that, right?
right. And I totally agree with you on that. I think college is one of the biggest scams in the game right now, because
Yep.
it's like, if you take out a bunch of unsubsidized loans that accumulate a certain amount of interest, you lose track of time. By the time you, if you have the ability to achieve this degree, like, you're in crazy debt. and the degree that you have doesn't allow you to make over 45 to 50,000 a year, you know, and now you gotta, you know what I mean? Like,
All that colleges and university does is it gets people in debt and programs to be compliant sheep, right? You ask any guy right now that's in college or university, and a lot of the guys that have watched my stuff or read my book, they're like, I can't believe the woke bullshit. I can't believe, you know, the risks with dating women with potential Me Too's. A friend of mine got Me Too'd. He got thrown out of school. There's all these stories that you start to hear, and it's like, okay, look, unless you're going to school to become a doctor or a lawyer, like you need some kind of professional designation so you can go and operate on somebody's brain or some shit like that. You really
right.
don't need an education today. In fact, you'd be probably better off taking those tens of thousands of dollars and using them to start a business. And even if that business fails, I guarantee you're going to learn more about life and making money doing that instead of sitting in a classroom announcing your pronouns before you answer the teacher's question, right?
I agree with you on that because it's like, how can some, okay, for example, right? How can somebody teach me about a business at a university when they never had a business within their own? You know,
Yeah.
like it doesn't make any sense to me, and I think that's one of the catch 22s when you're trying to get a degree. You know, I think, and you know, a lot of people they sleep on the getting the certificate for becoming a plumber and an electrician. Those things are pretty lucrative, and those people are the backbones to society, man.
Yeah.
And they get looked down on if you get a trade. You know that it's not respected. Like a guy that that works at Wall Street and got a bachelor's going to Yale or something like that.
Yeah,
I
you can
think
have a guy that like pays himself $200,000 a year because he owns his own welding company, but he won't be as appreciated and valued by women in society as a law student with 150 grand in debt, making $70,000 a year starting out, right?
right.
Like a chick is going to pick that, you know, soon to be lawyer partner over the guy making $200,000 a year running his own welding firm, right?
Yeah, and that's a fact because I think they make those foolish decisions choosing that mate like that is because their occupation is not as appealing as the guy that's in debt with $150,000.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
status is a real big part of how women choose guys too, right? Like being influential and having status is a very big part of it too. So, yeah, there's an issue with that exists, and it's like I just tell guys like look, you know, don't get mad at it, just understand what it is, and you know, just navigate it, you know, accordingly. All I do is I just take a map and I draw it out and I put all the landmines on the map, and I'm like, look, you know, these are all the dangerous areas, so walk around them, you know, sort of thing, right?
right, and I think that's dope too. Like, you are like a lot of the message on your podcast and in your book, like it's good information for males to edify themselves in a productive manner to society and all that. And I mean,
Hmm.
and my next question is like, what kind of advice would you give to a dude when he catch his girl, you know, cheating on them? I mean, a lot of times, dudes, they will take out the angle on the guy that the chick is cheating with, and I think that's wrong, man. I think you should charge it to the game and move on to the next. Now, what kind of advice would you give to that dude that's making that sucker move, coming, you know what I mean, trying to violate the dude that's smashing his chick?
Yeah, so
Talk.
yeah, you got to forget about the guy that's banging your chick, whatever. Like there's two different things that you got to understand here. Like when a guy steps out on the relationship, he's cheating. You know, he's basically exercising options, right? Like he can go out, he can go bang a chick, come home, kiss his wife, love his kids, pay all the bills, you know, take care of everything, do the extracurriculars, go to family events. Like guys don't generally form emotional connections to women that they're cheating on. Women, on the other hand, they don't cheat; they betray. Okay, betrayal is different from cheating. Men cheat, women will betray because they're betraying the love that they committed to their guy, and they're allocating that to another guy. Right? Women can't go around banging, you know, six guys in a couple of days. I mean, some do because you know they're made for the street, sort of thing, as they like to say. But at the end of the day, it's very, very difficult for women to have unconnected sex with men. So when they step out on a relationship, it's a betrayal, which is a totally different thing. And if a woman betrays your trust, why would you keep her around? Like, what kind of a loser are you that you would actually, stoop to the level where you're like, well, let me just keep her because, she touched my pee-pee one time and we have sex like once a month, right? Most guys are like that. They're just like, okay, I'm sorry, baby. It's all my fault. I didn't give you enough attention. It's like these guys are geeks. They don't want to see the reality of the world. They just want to see the rainbows and the butterflies and consume the lies. And they're the ones that take ownership usually for her stepping out in the relationship, and they'll go and blame themselves. Maybe I didn't take her out enough. Maybe I didn't tell her that I loved her enough, whatever, it happens to be. The truth of the matter is there's probably stuff that you did that didn't keep her in the relationship. And a lot of that might have to be with you maybe getting lazy, you getting fat, sitting around, you can't hold down a job, you're not competent, you can't make money. If any of these things exist, and you also, outside of that, mate select the chick that's a hoe, right? Like I said earlier, I mean, if you want to invite a woman in your life that's been with 100 guys and think that she's going to be exclusive to you, well, you're a muppet. Like, you're an idiot, if you actually believe that. So see the world for what it actually is. There's probably a part of the equation where maybe you stop chasing excellence, in your own life, because women want to be with the giant. They want to wake up every morning. They want to look at a guy and be like, this is the best that I can do. This guy's a shit. I can't wait to come home and see him tonight. Be naked when I get home. She's texting him, throughout the day. Like, she's got genuine burning desire for him, right? So, there's a component that guys have to take ownership for. But at the same time, I mean, if she steps out, she steps out. Like, you take her back. I'm sorry, man, but you're a cuck. Like, you're a loser.
I totally agree on that. And by you making that statement, females betray, I think it's dope because when they do step out, it's definitely calculated and precise. Like,
very calculated, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
so I totally agree with you on that. Definitely. My next question is for you is that do you think that women that have achieved like a great compensation that moves them to a high level socioeconomic status, does that hinder them from accomplishing bagging a good mate?
Yeah, it's harder for them because, these like boss girls, right? So there's this new phenomenon, today where you got these boss girls, these bad bitches, whatever they call themselves. But it's like these women that are like trying to be like professional men. And they think in their heads as they're doing this, they're going through the degrees, they're taking school, they're climbing a corporate ladder, they're working extra hours overnight, putting in the weekends and stuff like that. Like, they think to themselves, okay, now I'm going to be attractive to a high value guy, right? They're mid 30s, by this point. The problem is most guys that they're trying to get with, most of the guys that they feel attraction to, they might want to start a family with or, settle down with, sort of thing. They're not looking for some boss girl that they're going to come home and have disagreeable nights with, right? Like, you're a guy, you're chasing excellence all day, you're doing something with your life, you're putting a dent in the universe, and you come home and you got some bitch telling you that the curtains are wrong and you got to go and return them, and you have to do this, that, and the other thing, and she's trying to run your life as soon as you walk in the door. High value men don't want that. They don't want to come home to some disagreeable woman. They want to come home to a house that has been made into a home, by their woman, and their kids are looked after. There's a healthy meal on the table. The house is clean. That's what they want to come home to. They don't want to come home to some boss girl that's also out there chasing excellence too. Now, those are for the unplugged alphas, right? There's not a lot of guys like that, but there's a lot of guys out there that are, professionals, doctor, lawyer, surgeon, accountant, and they also, made up with a woman that's also a professional doctor, lawyer, surgeon, accountant, or something like that, because she wants to find her equal. But the amount of guys that are at that level that are her equal is very, very slim. There's a calculator online. I think it's called the female delusion calculator or something like that. You've probably seen it, right? So, I mean, if you go in and you type, I'm looking for a guy that's 35, not overweight, and makes over $200,000 a year. It's something like less than, like 1% of the male population. But women have it in their heads that there's all these guys out there that are like hiding from them, that are over 6 foot tall, that make loads of money, that don't have any baggage, that are interesting and competent and captivating and have good families and have a house and 2 cars and a boat and all this kind of shit. They think there's loads of these guys out there, but they don't understand that the number of guys that meet that very high criteria is so low that they're all competing for the same guy, which is why
alone.
Yeah, which is why these women basically end up, with like these chads out there that are banging all of these women, simultaneously. So
Right.
these guys are spoiled for choice, and they're trying to lock down the one guy. But he's like, why? When I've got like all these options,
Yeah, it's
like
a
what's in it
plethora
for
of
me?
women that's eagerly to engage with them.
The see,
You know what I mean?
the big mistake that women make is all of those things that I described about those qualities that they go and pursue in their lives are basically describing the guy that they want to be with. And they think that if they turn themselves into the guy that they want to be with, that the guy that they want to be with is going to see them as an equal and want to be with them, right? But women are beauty objects, men are success objects. So you start telling women, stories like that, like men select women on a long-term basis based on beauty, purity, things like that. That's what we look for. We're not looking for your fucking degree. I don't care. You don't share your pot of gold with
But
me.
yo, hold on, yo, Mr. Cooper, I gotta say this. Now you got a lot of suckers out there that seek women that make that kind of that meet that tax bracket. And yo, what are your thoughts on that? Because there's a lot of dudes out there that's promoting that and that they should engage with a female that makes that kind of money. Like I call them suckers, but I want your perspective on it.
Yeah, so
So
like you're talking about guys dating up, like dating women that make more money than them.
yeah, yeah,
So look, I mean, if you're going to get married, I mean, this sounds controversial when I say it, but if you're going to get married, the safest way to do it so you don't get fucked if there's going to be a divorce is to marry a woman that makes more money than you. Because it's the person that makes more money that usually ends up paying the other person in that divorce. So you
yeah.
want to be strategic about it as a guy. You make $100,000 a year, you can find a chick that makes $200,000 a year. If it doesn't work out, you're probably pretty well protected because family law, will protect you. The problem with it though is that women don't like to marry down, right?
They don't,
They
yeah,
want to marry across the socioeconomic scale. They're
or
equal. The
above.
problem is if you ask a woman, what their equal looks like, and then you say, okay, well, how much money does he need to make? And then she'll be something like, oh, he needs to make at least $100,000 a year. And then you ask her, how much money do you make? She'll say, oh well, I make $75,000 a year. It's like, okay, well, how are you an equal then, right? So in their mind, when they say equal, they're thinking higher than them. So women don't generally tend to marry down on the socioeconomic scale. They tend to marry up. So that's where the problem lies. I mean, you got all these boss women out there that are running their businesses. They've climbed the corporate ladder. They've put off having kids. They've smashed their way through a whole bunch of guys, in their party years and the
Right,
vacations,
right.
all that sort of thing. They got a huge notch count. They've got 3 cats in their house and a fluffy white dog and all this bullshit. And they think that that is a big catch for them, for like guys to want them. But they don't understand the reality of the world. It's like, look, you've basically designed your life to essentially be a man, and no guy wants to be with another dude. They don't want to be with another, like a woman that behaves like a guy. That's all like that. They want somebody that's beautiful. They want somebody that's agreeable. They want somebody that's a compliment to their life, that's going to add, to their life, not take away. It's been said for years now, and I know this is a funny statement, but it's a very simple equation for women: keep his dick
They have
hard,
a hard
keep
time
his life easy.
understanding that. They have a hard time getting it back because it's like, yo, like every female thinks that, yo, like that's successful and that's in that high tax bracket lane. Like
Yeah.
they think that like them having this kind of accomplishment turns on the dude where it does the complete opposite. To my thoughts on that is like, yo, a female that's that successful on that level, she has to adopt a masculine trait in order to accomplish those certain goals, man.
Yeah.
And you giving a breakdown like, yo, you on point like a scoreboard. Like you definitely letting us know.
That's what I do, man. That's what I do. There's no bullshit.
Straight shooter. I like that. We need that. You know what I mean? Because dudes, you know what I mean? Like they scared to keep it real because it's all for the sake of having that opportunity to slide up in them drawers, man. You know what I mean? But
Yep.
you not with it. You straight shooter. You let it know what it is. What it is. You know what I mean? And a guy like me appreciate truth and wisdom like that because it definitely you should implement and that into your lifestyle and not to fall into the snares of this game, man. Because like each move you make when you're dealing with these females, man, it's if you're not on point, you know what I mean, you're gonna be taking the L all across the board. You know what I mean?
It's very risky to get involved with the women today on an intimate basis when you form a relationship, especially in North America, especially in any Western country where laws are hostile towards men and especially fathers. So you have to be very, very careful. You have to be very selective. um, like the main dating strategy that guys should be using should be really dating multiple women simultaneously in a non-monogamous fashion. And if your goal is just to have fun, then that's really all that you ever need to do. Now, if your goal changes and you're thinking to yourself, all right, I'm tired of the nightmares, I'm tired of all this bullshit, I'm tired of this taking up all my time, and they start going down the route of maybe I'd like a girlfriend, or maybe they want to go further than that and say, maybe I want to have a family sort of thing and start having some kids. That's when you can take a look at your dating pool and then say to yourself, look, I've been dating these women for so long. Some of them have been asking me questions like, where do we stand? Are you seeing anybody else? Are we going to be exclusive, sort of thing? That's when you can start entertaining those conversations. And even then, if you do entertain them, you don't have to be monogamous. You can set up your life in such a way that if you want, be monogamous with her, right? If you so choose, or if you don't want that and you want to have options, and set up your life and say, all right, I choose you, but just understand I'm going to step outside from time to time, but don't worry, it's not going to take away anything from you. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to embarrass you. I'm not going to bring home a disease. There's all kinds of ways that you can structure your life, but guys don't realize that there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? There's a whole bunch of different ways you can live your life as a guy, depending on how you want to structure it and what your goals are.
I totally agree with you on that. And if a male achieves this becoming the top 5% in the world, I think he has the right to copulate with multiple women. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And I also agree on that aspect for a female too. Like if she's making that kind of bread and she's giving you provision, I think she should be able to do her thing too. You know what I mean? It's only right because she put in that work. You know what I mean? To support
Well, I
herself
wouldn't.
and a male. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't agree with that. Look, I mean, a woman can be promiscuous if she wants. That's basically polyamory, and a lot of these polyamorous type of relationships that you see today, it's not the guy going out and smashing who he wants when he wants. It's usually a couple of guys or maybe three guys. I've seen articles where it's three or four guys that are all competing for one woman, and she's gross. She's like a three, and she's banging who she wants when she wants, and that's
Right,
disgusting, right? Like, there's no time in history where women would run a harem of guys. Guys throughout history, successful men that were influential, that had a lot of resources, a lot of land, a lot of money, armies, with them. These are the guys that were able to run harems. Ishmael the Bloodthirsty, I think his Guinness record was from the 1800s or something like that. He fathered over 1,100 children, had something like 5 or 6 wives, and hundreds of mistresses, concubines. And by the way, all of his mistresses were basically guarded by eunuchs. So he would lob off their genitals to guard his women. At no time in history is there a story of women doing the same thing, right? A man
right.
can impregnate hundreds of women in a year, but a woman can only get pregnant once in a year.
She out of commission.
It's Dude, it's a
Yeah.
totally different
No,
game.
from a biological perspective, you're totally right on that. But
Yeah.
me expounding on the female that's successful, making that kind of
I
money
wouldn't
or
have it.
whatever.
I wouldn't have it, man. I would put my foot down and be
I
like,
mean,
no,
I mean,
you need to stay
obviously, I
low.
wouldn't date a female that get down like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
Yeah.
fact. But
Yeah.
I understand, like, like, when a dude's dealing with a female that make more money than him, in that relationship, he's subservient. I don't care what anybody say. That dude's
Most of the time,
subservient
yeah.
to that female. Know
Well,
what I mean?
look, most guys make more money than women anyway in
Right.
relationships, but even those guys are subservient to their women. That's why they have that soundbite: "Happy wife, happy life." You can have a dude
Now,
making half a million dollars
you,
a
you
year,
you right
and his
about
wife
that.
and his
You right
wife is a
about that.
hairdresser, but she
Mhm.
runs him at home
You're right about that, and that's because that's from a social construct and how the laws is created
because they
to
let it happen,
support.
right? Because they've heard this bullshit about happy wife,
Right,
happy life, their entire
right.
life. So they're just like, I'll just give her money. I'll just buy her the Range Rover. She doesn't like the Range Rover. Fine. I'll get her the G Wagon. She wants the Range Rover and the G. Fine. She can have both. She wants to go away with her girlfriends to Jamaica for a week. Fine. I'll pay for that shit. She's going to come back all, guts rearranged by a bunch of guys down there. It's like, these guys are idiots, right? Like, they don't know how to set the frame in the relationship. And even though they're making the money, even though they should be leading the relationship, she ends up leading it. And at some point, one day she sits down with her girlfriends and she's like, "Hey, Becky, did you know that you can take half his shit and the kids and not have to put up with his ass either?" And they're like, "Yeah, and I get to keep the G-Wagon and the Range Rover and still go on the vacations and get fucked by a bunch of guys and, do whatever I want." And then
Right.
that's when stuff gets dangerous for guys, because then now they're going through the divorce grinder, right? And then he watches all of his wealth flow to her while she's using it to alienate him from his own children. And
Right.
some mofo is spending more time raising his kids than he is, right? So the plugged in beta mindset doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
how much money you make. The plugged in beta mindset is very, very dangerous to men, right? Like when you understand the fundamentals of leading the relationship, being the man, stepping up, setting boundaries, making sure she's faithful and loyal to you, vetting her for long-term relationships to make sure that she's not a hoe, she's not made for the street sort of thing. You have to do a lot of work. Like it's a lot of work to do all this stuff. And most guys don't understand the amount of work that's involved with dealing with an LTR. I always tell guys, look, man, if you don't want to deal with that shit, then just date women and spin plates, right? Because that's a lot easier. Plus, you get the variety, you get less headaches. They're at arm's length. You don't have any of the bullshit. You don't have any risk exposure. Half your stuff's never going to go to anybody else, if you set yourself up properly. But most guys, at some point, some girls like, "Yo, where do we stand?" Because I really dig your vibe and be hanging out for a long time. The guy's like, "Okay, Becky, let's get married," right? And they don't fucking think about any of this shit.
Right. Yo, salute to Raz, girl, man. I see you in the building. You know I love you, girl. Her question is to you. What's the acronym for LTR? What does that stand for?
Long-term relationship.
You got it on Raz, girl. He just broke it down. Now my next question for you is, what's more of a classic film, Casino or Bronx Tale?
Oh man, I don't know. They're both good. Bronx Tale, probably.
Bronx, yeah. I'm a big fan of Bronx Tale. You know what I mean? Colloquial and all that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
My next question for you is, now I like the way you have the balance between the relationship between the male and female, right? But yo, what's your thoughts on paternity fraud? It's up by like 30%. Give me the breakdown on that.
So paternity fraud, for people that don't know what that is, basically means that she gets knocked up by some other dude and you end up raising that guy's kid. Okay. This is called cuckoldry, essentially in the animal kingdom. It's relatively common, in the animal kingdom. Like some birds will come into a nest, shit its eggs out, fly away, and then that bird raises the eggs of the other bird and they don't even know the difference, right? So cuckoldry
Right.
is a phenomenon that happens throughout the animal kingdom. The problem with it, though, is that if you've invested in a woman and her kid, and it's not your kid, then like what's the point of that? Because the whole point of siring children as a man and as a father is to pass on your DNA, to pass your name on down, to pass your lineage on down, right? Like that's what the advantage to that is. And by the way, that was something that became extremely important about 10,000 years ago with the advent of agriculture, because now you had stuff, right? Like 20,000 years ago, you didn't really have stuff. You didn't have land. You didn't have oxen and fields and plows and shit like that. You had none of that stuff. You were a nomadic hunter gatherer, and like the notion of being able to identify what was yours didn't really matter back then. So about 10,000 years ago, with the advent of agriculture, where we started to have stuff, land, oxen, chickens, pigs, stuff like that, that mattered because you wanted to pass it down to your kids. So it's a huge problem. It's very, very deceptive. Women get pissed off when you start asking questions like, "Well, I want to do a paternity test and make sure it's mine." They always get mad. But here's the fucked up part. Women know with 100% assurance that if they're pregnant, that that's their kid, that they're the mother. They know with 100% assurance because that's in their body. It's their kid. They know that it's theirs. But guys don't know. They have no idea unless they either do a paternity test or see. This is why virginity was so prized throughout history, right? Because they knew that if she was a
Right.
virgin, if you impregnate her, that it's 100% going to be your kid, right?
Mhm.
But the problem with that now today is women are promiscuous. Have been with a bunch of guys. Like you meet a woman in her 30s, it's not uncommon, for her to be with 20, 30, 40, 50 guys, to have maybe an abortion or two. It's like, why would you want to share like the womb that some other guy shared with you, sort of thing? Or she's had two or three other kids with two or three other guys, and she shows up and she's like, "Let's have a baby together." And it's like, why would you want to do that? You're basically a cuck when you're raising somebody else's kids, and you're not entirely sure that that could be yours. Now, the stat with cuckoldry, it's disgusting. It's very, very difficult to identify with the actual real numbers. So I talk about it in my book as well. So I talk about cuckoldry in depth as well. But because it relies on women being deceptive, not being honest and clear with who the father is, because if she's sleeping with a bunch of guys around the same time that she gets pregnant, she's probably going to go to the guy that's got more financial resources and be like, guess what?
Right,
We're pregnant,
right.
right? Because it wouldn't make sense for her to say, it's this guy over here that's in jail right now that's got like the alpha male genes that knock me
Mhm.
up to try to get him to raise a kid. It would make sense for her to deceive and say, guess what? You're going to be a father, even though she might know that it's not his or is even uncertain. She'll just point to that guy because he's got the financial resources. So they do that for survival. It's an evolutionary thing. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. Like, it is what it is. Like, if
Right.
women didn't pick somebody with financial resources to help them raise their kid, it would spell death for her and her kids 1,000 years ago, right? That, like, they had to find somebody with strong resources, influence, was strong, could hunt, bring home the bacon, she could cook it up, sort of thing, right? So somewhere between 10 and upwards of 30% of childbirths today, the guy that thinks that he's a father is not the father. And I've got all the data to prove that in my book as well. I mean, some say on the low end it's 10%. The averages are saying
Hell
in
no.
some studies is
I
like
don't think
12%.
so.
But if you ask a woman, hey, have you ever deceived a man? Like, question one
I
is,
gonna say the truth. Come on, come
do you have any kids? Yes, I have 3 kids. And then the next question on the survey is the father of your kids actually the father of your kids, or did you deceive him? Do you think women are going to be honest and say, oh, yeah, I
on. Hell
lied to him?
no.
Of course not. Right. So there's no real way to find out unless you paternity test every single kid in every single marriage, which is never going to happen.
Yeah, because just requesting for a paternity test, um, um, it conjure up conflict within the relationship. I mean,
In
so
some countries, it's actually illegal to perform a paternity test. Like, that's how far the female first primary social order has gone to protect women from looking bad.
right. I mean, I think it's crazy, And my next question for you is: do you think that culture um create a delusion for middle-aged women to divorce they mate at a crazy age? For example, look at Tom Brady's wife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He about to go through a whole nasty divorce because she has this illusion thinking that she'll be able to bag another male like Tom Brady, which
Yeah,
is
well,
not
she's a good
the
looking
case.
woman. Look, even if she's gross, like, even if she's a 3, most women think that they can find a better looking guy. I mean, using Tom Brady's wife as an example, like, she's a gorgeous woman for her age, but she
Right,
obviously thinks that she can do better. But I mean, from what I understand, the reason why she wants to untie the knot there is because she delivered an ultimatum to him saying, you need to retire and spend time with the family. And he's like, no, I want to do one more year. So she wants to untie the knot, fuck up the family, remove the father from the household over
for
one
1 year.
year over one
Right,
year because he wants to go chase excellence for one more year, right? So, like, you don't have a lot of authority in a household anymore as a father, right? So it's like, if you have responsibility to a family, to raise a family and protect the children and protect your wife and pay all the bills and all that sort of, like, if you have all those responsibilities, the problem that we have in today's world is you don't have authority over the family anymore, right? And women can
right,
unilaterally at any given time say, you know what, I'm out, I'm done, no fault divorce, I just want to like untie the knot and get what's owed to me. And they can do that, and there's nothing that the guy can do, right? So it's like, you have to understand that's part of the equation when you get into a marriage. Now, can Tom Brady, could he have maybe had a better chance of not letting her do that by having better frame in the relationship, by leading, by being more of an alpha? Like, okay, he's an alpha on the football field, but was he in the relationship? I don't know. But if a woman wants to untie the knot and end that marriage over one fucking year of playing in your professional
but
game for one extra year, that tells
mhm.
me he's not leading that relationship.
I mean, I wouldn't. I feel you on that because like, yeah, you know what I mean. But like, how can I? Okay, like, I'm not. I don't think that's the case. I think because of we have to factor in thought culture, the laws that perpetuate this bad behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, I feel like Tom Brady is pretty assertive within the field and within his relationship. I think because of these laws and thought culture factoring in the process, I think that it creates a false illusion where she thinks it is worth it to throw away the marriage over 1 year.
Yeah, you're
And
always going to be dealing with that, man. Like you're always going
yeah,
to be swimming upstream. If you're a
yeah,
guy in a relationship and you're married, you're always swimming upstream. It's not easy because everything out there, every piece of marketing, every Hollywood movie, every fucking piece that the wives see when they go to the grocery store and they see all the fucking magazines on the shelf about everybody getting divorced and doing whatever the fuck they want, sort of thing. Everything out there reinforces you go, girl, you do what's right for you. Right. So if she decides that it's right for her to fuck up the family and leave him, then she's going to do that. Right. Like there's no way to modify or change that unless you want to go and live in Amish country and you got no TVs, no radio, and you don't have any cars and you get around with a horse and buggy. Like it's almost impossible to escape that in today's world. Right. That's just the
right.
reality of the world. So doesn't matter, you could have the tightest game, whatsoever. You get married, you have kids, and she starts hearing shit about you don't need him, or you go girl, or you do what's right for you, or he's abusing you because he's spending an extra year playing sports and some shit like when she's hanging out
Right,
with her
right,
girls,
right.
and she's like, okay, well I think I'm done, Tom. Let's call it quits because I told you can't play one more year. You got to come home now, right? So it's like, what do you do?
Man, there's nothing you can do but get ready to go to court and battle through the court system. You know what I mean?
Imagine that's your life. Imagine you busted your ass to become the best football player, the best quarterback, whatever he is. I don't follow football. Let's say he's the best quarterback in history or whatever. Imagine you bust your ass your entire life to become the best quarterback, and some chick is like, you know what, F you. You want to, play an extra year? I'm done. I'm out. And I'm going to take half your shit and everything. And I'm probably going to have the kids too.
To me, I think that's the ultimate betrayal, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
I said,
he
men cheat, women
sacrifices,
betray.
yeah, he sacrifices time, his body to provide you this great lifestyle. And you guys have a beautiful family together. Because I'm big on nuclear family. Even though I'm not an advocate for marriage, I think having a nuclear family is very important because it builds great nations.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And great societies, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a horrible thing what she's doing, man. And that's just it sucks, man. Because now, what's the average male supposed to think, man? Like, what's the point?
Well, I'll tell you what the average guy thinks right now, because I get DMs from dudes like, the last couple of weeks since they announced this, big ass, divorce with the Tom Brady thing. Is the statement is, something along the lines of, look, if Tom Brady couldn't keep her happy, what chance do I have as an average guy? Right. So they make a legit argument, right? It's like if one of the most successful guys, or like one of the most successful guys in the athletic world, for example, couldn't keep his wife happy and she wouldn't stay in his frame, what chance do I have? So they make that argument. Like a lot of the nihilistic guys like the black pillars and the MGTOWs, will say something along that lines. And you can't really blame them, right? Like they're just pointing to an obvious fact, but you don't know the nuances, like within a relationship, whether or not he was leading the frame of the relationship. But at the end of the day, she lives in a country or in a state or in such a way, they structure life in such a way that she feels like it's in her best interest to leave him. Probably because she's a boss girl, right? It's like, you got to do what's right for you, girl, sort of thing. So they don't put the nuclear family first. It doesn't encourage them to put the nuclear family first. It encourages them to do what they want, when they want, whatever feels good, basically is what it is. There was a movie a number of years ago. Julia Roberts was in it. I think it was Eat, Pray, Love or something like that. It was categorized as like basically, encouraging women to get divorced, like, a divorce porn, type of film. And it's like, she leaves her marriage and she goes off, this new life and travels and bangs a bunch of guys and she thinks the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. But the truth of the matter is, for men and women, the grass is greener where you water and fertilize and take care of the lawn, where you stand. It doesn't matter if it's on this side of the fence or that side of the fence. The big mistake that a lot of women make is they think, well, I'm going to leave this guy and I'm going to do better. How are you going to do better than the most successful athlete that ever played a position of a quarterback? Like, what are you going to do that's better than that? Like, you're a 40-something-year-old woman. Any guy that's more successful than Tom Brady is, if he's got his head screwed on right, is going to be dating a younger woman that's hotter, that's more agreeable.
Yeah.
Not some single mom with a bunch of kids, right?
Yeah, that's a fact. No, and That's why I blame thought culture, because it conjures up this false narrative that, yo, you're able to
Thought
move
culture
on.
is a part of it, but men are a
Yeah,
big part of it too, right? Men are a very big
yeah,
part of it. I bet
yeah.
that there's a lot of
There's a lot
things
of
that
suckers
happen.
out there that perpetuate that. Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah,
Like if I sat down with Tom Brady and his wife, I don't know what her name is, but if I sat down with the two of them and I asked them questions about their marriage, what happened, when they would travel, what she would spend her spare time doing, what he was doing, with his spare time, I guarantee there was things in that marriage, in that relationship that he could have done better too. So it's not all just on thought culture. It's society in general. Men need to be better, and so do women too.
I mean, I feel you on that. Like, word up. Nah, you right about that. But I also think that let me just say this, right? Because we have divested from religion, right? I think it caused people to lose their moral compass, especially women. Like, yo, a dude like Tom Brady, man, you ain't gonna do no better than that. I mean, and like, yo, she should appreciate the hard work he put in within the NFL, and be loyal to him by default.
Mhm.
She can't even do that. You know what I mean? So I feel like, yo, it's on. You know what I mean? On
Well, that's
from
that.
that dynamic, it's on her, man.
Yeah,
Straight
but okay, so to sort of push back on that a little bit, with you, my
up. Hmm.
friend, is that men look at love differently from women. Like men look at love idealistically. They think that if I just put a ring on her finger, have children, provide for her, put a roof over the head, make sure there's food on the table, that she has to stick around forever because of religious, convictions and sickness and health and richer and poorer and blah 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 sort of thing. I'm not a religious guy, so I'm like, you're starting to pick up on this, right? So
Right.
these guys think, because of these convictions, because of these beliefs, that she has to essentially do what's right in that marriage. But here's the thing, that's not how things work today. Okay. That's not how things are going to be working anytime in the foreseeable future. So if you walk into, like, I've done probably thousands now of private consults, mostly with men, some with women, and in some cases with couples together, right?
Right.
And a lot of guys that I've talked to have gotten married to a woman that was religious, from the same, spiritual background, conservative family, parents were still married, large family with a bunch of siblings, and then they get married to them, and then they end up, living together. They have a couple kids, and then she goes into the workforce, and then all of a sudden she cuts her hair short, and then she dyes it purple, and she puts on 100 pounds,
Yeah,
and
that's
then she starts
horrible.
talking about voting for Joe Biden and shit like
Right.
that, and
Right.
starts putting like circles around their Facebook profile, like get vaccinated, protect everybody from COVID-19 and all this shit, and then before he knows it, 10, 12, 15 years down the road, she wants to get divorced, and the woman that he married is not the same woman that he divorces. Right? Now, whose
Right.
fault is that? Is that religion's fault? Is that his fault? Is that her fault? There's a whole bunch of people that you could point fingers at, but at the end of the day, whenever you point a finger at somebody, you always got three pointing back to yourself, right? So you have to
Yeah.
take ownership for your own shit. So I'm all about taking extreme ownership for men. Like there's there's only one part of the universe that you can control, and that's yourself. You can't control what other people think. You can't control what society does, but I can control my own thoughts and I can control the choices that I make. So I put most of my effort when I'm talking to guys into look in the mirror and hold that motherfucker accountable, because you can't hold your wife, women, society, government. You can't hold any of those people to any standards, but hold yourself to standards and raise your standards. The more and higher that you raise your standards, the better results that you're going to get out of life. And that might mean that you're going to have to let friends go. You might have to let women go. You might even have to let your wife go. That might mean that there's going to be some changes in your life. But you want to live optimized, you want to walk around and have the best experience as a guy, then these are just some of the cold, hard truths. Like, this is a harsh reality of the world that we live in. It's fucking dangerous. When you become an adult, like when you're 19, 20 years old, you basically
Mhm.
walk into a big ass building and it's dark and there's all this sharp shit everywhere, blades and swords and fucking belt sanders and circle, and you're walking through this, and that's life. Like, life is very difficult as a guy. It's not as difficult for women, right?
That
Everything in law, everything in society is really designed to protect women. Women are the protected sex, men are the disposable sex. Men go off to war and die, not women. right?
Fact.
Men are the
Yeah.
ones that are going off to oil rigs, drilling out oil so that, like women
Facts.
can go to gas station and pump it in their car and drive around and be like a boss girl and shit with their Mercedes, right?
Right. Right.
This is what men are doing, right? So,
Yeah.
men are the disposable sex and women are the protected sex. It's always been that way, right? The problem
Hmm.
today is that they still want you to have responsibility as a man to society and to women, but without your authority. We used to have authority. We don't have authority anymore.
Right. Right. And I totally agree with you on that. And so, man, it's just things are with with social media and dot culture and all these things implemented into our social construct, it really changed a lot of things between the relationship between the male and female. And you're right. It's like, yo, the female want to deal with the male that's successful, but she don't want him to have no input on making certain decisions when they in this kind of crazy relationship, man.
Yeah.
And that's a fact, man.
Man, there's a
Um,
lot to talk about. I just got to remind you that I got to hop on another call in about 10 minutes. So we got to start to wrap up, though.
oh yeah, definitely, man. This be my last question for you. And yo, What's your thoughts on this? What's your thoughts on this crazy dark culture that creates the female to have this false illusion, thinking that she can have the best of both worlds? Like
The best of both worlds in what sense, though?
in the sense of to be able to you know date the male and have control over the male
My
that's
apologies, Rush.
Um, well, I mean, like we kind of talked about that throughout the podcast, but like you've got women today that see like feminism in its current form. Like I call it toxic feminism, right? And I kind of
right.
do it tongue in cheek because everybody out there is calling masculinity toxic masculinity. So I just apply toxic to feminism because truthfully, in today's world, it's not a movement for equality. Women have had equality for a long time. Okay, women have gone beyond equality for a long time, right? Like again, men are the disposable sex, women are the protected sex. Um, and then they start making arguments like, well, women get paid 83 cents on the dollar for every dollar a man makes, blah, blah. It's like, that's already been dispelled. Women choose jobs that are less hours, lower risk, lower pay, overwhelmingly, and men choose higher risk, longer hour jobs, than women. So that's why they get paid more. But women have had equality for decades now. It's at the point now where it's now a supremacy movement where it's like, if you use something like the Me Too movement, which happened several years ago, it's believe all women. Believe all women. Like, really? All of them? Every single one of them? Like, I get it. You have to kind of listen to the other side, but, can we maybe
Mhm.
believe like 2/3 of them or 3/4 of them and maybe like ask questions about some of the crazy shit that comes up instead of just
Mhm.
going, okay, whatever she says is fine. It's like, show me some evidence. Right.
Right.
So when you get to this point where it's clearly, like a movement that doesn't like men, that wants to prevent men freedom of maneuverability, to steal away access to their kids, to remove wealth from them through either things in family law, child support tables, taxation. There's, there's all these ways, today where society is trying to pussify and weaken men, right? And we see that in reality today because we have way lower testosterone levels today than we did 50, 60 years ago. Like my grandfather's levels would have been higher than what they are today. It's factual. They've seen this. They can tell by digging up in excavation sites from 1,000 years when they look at the bone structure, because when you have high testosterone in your teenage years, your jaws form more of a square. Your ring finger becomes longer than your index finger, so you can see this in the bones. So it's not like we're making this up because people are it's just bullshit, that's made up, he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's factual, right?
Right.
Testosterone levels were higher back then. Today men are soy. That's where you get these neckbeard guys, these soy boys, and they put
Right.
on the pink pussy hats and they march with women, for the women's rights sort of thing, because they think that if they do that, that some of these women are going to like them or want to sleep with them. But the reality of the world is today is that men no longer lead. Men no longer have authority. I mean, you don't even have authority in your own household. You have responsibility, but you no longer have the authority. But those things were intertwined for thousands of years, right? So This is just the reality of the world that we live in today. And I'm not mad about it. It's okay, fine. Like it is what it is. But then when people get mad at me, like, oh, Rich, who hurt you? Like, would you ever get married again? And I say, no, I'd never get married again. It's like, why? Like, why would I do something stupid like that? Like expose myself to unnecessary risk and give up half my shit to a woman potentially down the road because stuff doesn't work out. You'd have to be a fucking idiot, right? But they lie to guys today. It's like plug back into the matrix, just shut up, go to work, pay your taxes, happy wife, happy life. You watch any sitcom today on TV, anything that Hollywood puts out, Netflix, the father is always a bumbling idiot. He's a moron. He's the butt of all jokes. And this isn't even just today. Like even when I was a kid, when I would watch shit like Home Improvement or The Cosby Show or like Alf, like even Alf back in the day when I was a kid, that the fucking puppet. The father was always a bumbling idiot. He was always a moron. He was the butt of all jokes. And, the women in a household, like the mother or the sisters were always the heroes, you go girls sort of thing. This is not new. This has been going on for a while. So it's like, okay, fine. If that's the world that we've created, I'm not here to change it. I just see it for what it is. I just give you guys, the answers and I show you the code in the matrix. And I talk about that in my podcast and my book and all this stuff. I don't want guys to go around upset at the world. I don't want guys to be angry. I don't want guys to be nihilistic or to be hopeless. You can still deal with women. You can still have a relationship. Like I've got a girlfriend. I've had one for years, right? Like it's great. I have a good life, but it's only because I understand the way everything works around me and I don't let it fuck with me.
Man, that's amazing. And thank you so much for coming through today, Mr. Cooper, man. Hey, man, I know, you bought my campaign, man. Staying sucker free is the campaign, man. And I appreciate you coming through and allow me to interview you today, man.
You got it.
Any last word to the people before you bounce?
Last words. I'm going to say, just go to my website, check out my podcast, check out my books. It's all there. It's all centralized in one place. If you guys want to learn more about me, just go to richcooper.ca.
All right, cool. Yo, this interview is officially over. It's your boy Russ signing out. Yo, seek wisdom, practice humility, and remain sucker free. You heard? I'm out. 1.